Hi, I'm Debbie Raymond. This is our guest tonight, Bonnie Meroth. She is a co-author with me. Here we go, for one of our books, Intentional Spirits. And I say one of our books because we do have another one, but we are honoring this one today for a reason. Thank you, Bonnie, for coming.
My pleasure.
Hi, I'm Bob McDermott, and welcome to Paranormal and Beyond. We've got a great show tonight with two great. You're going to hear a lot of stories about the Titanic. Titanic is an interesting story unto itself. It sank over a century ago, taking 100 souls to the bottom with it. It sank on April 15th, 1912, so that anniversary is coming up very quickly here. There were about 3,000 people on the Titanic when she went down, but lifeboats really only could accommodate just over 1,200 people. So there were a lot of souls on that boat at the time that knew they weren't going to survive the sinking of this. Interesting thing on the boat was that there were a lot of very rich people. The Astors were one of them, the richest family probably in the country or the world at that point.
Right.
And in those days, people carried and took all of their valuables with them. So fine art, jewelry, money, cash, coins, that was all on the ship when it went down. So there's been many treasure hunters over the years that have tried to raise the Titanic and couldn't.
Right.
One of the things that is interesting to me is, as a sidebar to this, is that as the Titanic is leaving the port, she almost hits another ship. Had she struck that ship on her way out, she would have been remanded back to the dock, and in reality would not have been in the North Atlantic at that time when the iceberg was there. So another twist of fate right there that could have avoided a terrible thing.
Right.
And tonight what we're going to hear from both these people as co-authors of this great book, you've got to read it, we're going to hear from a different perspective tonight, and that is that we're going to hear from the victims versus the survivors. Many stories have been told about the survivors, but they haven't really talked about the victims yet. We're going to hear some of those stories tonight because the story in the sinking, there was some people that were very brave, and there were some people that were really cowards that fought their way through the crowd to get boats before women and children. But on the other hand, there were a lot of men that gave up their spot in the lifeboats so women and children could get in. So we're going to hear some of that tonight, and I think it's a fascinating story. And I welcome Bob to Paranormal and Beyond. One of the things I want to find out is how you two met up to write this book.
Debbie and I were having a business meeting about our first book, and I had just basically gotten used to the idea that Debbie could see spirits.
It's true.
I'm still not quite used to the idea, as much time as we've spent together.
It's true.
But I didn't know how to posture this delicately, so I just said, can you just conjure up any spirit that you? And Debbie nonchalantly said, sure. She said, I can invite them. If they want to come, they will come. And I had been working as a journalist on a story about the 100th anniversary of the Titanic at that time, and there were stacks of Titanic material all over my office. So I looked and I said, how about the Titanic victims? And she said, I can ask them. If they want to come, they'll come. If not, whatever. And then she said, but I can't do it now. I'm busy with the kids. I've got things on, so it's not going to happen right now. Well, little did we know, Debbie had no choice, because that night
That's right.
she had her first encounter.
It's very true, everything
Really?
that she's saying, because the reason why, first of all, when you asked me if, can I conjure them up or can I ask them to come, I said, of course I can, because I take appointments 4 days a week. So if I ask for so-and-so's family and friends to come, they come. So why wouldn't people from the Titanic come? I thought if it's no-brainer, of course they're going to come. I just figured I had a little bit more control over it. The reason why I was so shocked experience that we'll explain is because I don't think we realized what we were getting into is to explain it. And you realize how you just told the audience how many people perished on it.
1,500.
And thinking, okay, we can do this, and thinking, yeah, we can do it with the kids, with her job, with my job, with our personal lives, everything. And it came really fast, and we didn't have a choice. And I still say we don't have a choice to write it and to show people about it.
The morning after that meeting, Debbie called me and she said, we can't wait. We have to start writing like right now. And I
Right.
said, what happened? And she said, I'm cleaning
yeah.
my bathtub last night.
This is so true.
The bottom of my bathtub turned into the deck of a ship.
Yes.
And I'm getting goosebumps and the
I saw him
heebie-jeebies.
now.
Yeah. And she said, all of a sudden, she said, there was a man there. I'm looking at shiny boots and following them up
All the
to
way.
a man dressed, in early 1900s clothing or
Right.
whatever. And he was set, his face was ashen, his eyes were
Like
shallow,
sockets, yeah.
dark sockets. And
Right.
I think that was the time, didn't say who he was or anything
I
else.
got nothing. I just knew
You just
from
saw the image.
what was shown from it exactly. And people understand that when a medium really has a vision, we're actually in that time period. It's that real. So just by simply cleaning the bathtub, it became from the silicone kind of fiberglass bathtub
Right.
to the planks of a ship, like that.
Right. So,
and
so
yeah.
tell me, Deb, why do you think they reached out to you at this time?
Well, like I try to say when I explain to people differences about mediums and psychics, if they want to come when you invite them and you have good intentions about it, which is why intentional spirits
Right.
here, this is where the positivity comes from, and they know, okay, we can work with her because we have the respect and the compassion and the love and the intent on wanting to tell their story.
Right.
So when they know you're true to who you are, they're going to come. And it started within 24 hours.
So can we draw a conclusion that they came through to you because you people had this conversation prior to this?
That's
but,
right.
But one day prior to this.
That's right.
Not months or
Right.
or labored or research where you might have conjured up something through that.
It wasn't even 24 hours.
Now,
Yeah.
record being, I think now this is funny. I wanted to wait until after the summer, I think, to start writing. No, it started right then, like where we had to write it because I'm thinking, oh yeah, we can have this time. Wait until the kids finish school. Wait until they finish. It didn't happen that way.
And he didn't say anything to Debbie or introduce himself. But all of a sudden, she knew she was on a ship.
Right.
He not only looked dead, but he was very wet. So she just
Exactly.
put two and two
And blue,
together.
like someone drowning.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
So their motivation to come
Right.
through
Yes.
was maybe their thought was to get you to write a book about this. This story's never been told, as far as I know. I've done
That's
a lot of
right.
research in the last couple of weeks, pending you guys coming on.
Yes.
And everything is from the survivor's point of view, which is normal, that we get
Yes.
that, and historian's point of view. But it's interesting to me that they came through to you because they wanted a book written. They wanted their story told.
Oh, it gets me emotional.
Yep,
'cause
that's
what we
exactly
said.
true. And the stories that they tell were things that nobody has even heard of before. One spirit came to Debbie and told her that the ship was salacious.
And I didn't even know what the word meant, by the way. I say this on TV.
And
I
you-
had no idea. I said to her on the phone, "What is that? What does that mean?" I don't even know.
Well, she emailed it to me,
Yeah.
and I'm thinking, what is this word?
Yeah.
When she said it out loud, I knew what it was.
Right.
You should have seen how she
So
spelled
explain it.
So, but salacious, and I told her it meant prurient, dirty,
Right.
off color,
Right.
whatever.
Right.
And I said, if this spirit came to you from the Titanic, I said, I've heard about the Titanic being a party boat. So
Right.
I'm not quite sure how that fits in. And then as the spirit visited her, it was a man. He was aboard with his wife and two daughters. And here's another fact that came out. Now, as many articles and as much research as I've done on the Titanic, working with the Titanic Historical Society in
years.
Springfield.
Really?
Oh, yeah,
Yes, years.
for 30 years.
Right.
I had never come across the fact that there was an Afro-American aboard.
Really? Wow.
And I told that to Debbie, and
Was the capacity of a passenger or a crew member?
Oh, he was a passenger, and he
passenger.
was very well-to-do, highly educated, and was still treated differently because of the race.
Really?
So this is why when you say we talked about all this information coming up, how they talk so much about the rich and not too much about the middle and lower class. In the book, all we have kind of is misfits. And the misfits, the ones that weren't discussed or talked about. And if you notice all the newspapers and the stuff online, they don't say a lot of those kinds of things. They talk about the rich and they talk about all these different things, but it's like, it's almost as if it was taboo to discuss certain passengers
Right.
and the other things that were going on the ship. And that includes movies that were done about it. That includes all,
Right.
like, all the information that we see. So when we began writing the book and we got all this realistic information, to us it's realistic, even if some people think it's paranormal. To us it was realistic because it meant something.
Right.
And it was so done on an emotional basis that we said we have to write it.
Right.
There's no way that we cannot write what they were saying. So,
And I think people have to realize that back in 1912, not unlike today with
Right.
cruise ships, the affluent were higher up. They had bigger rooms.
Right.
They had better service. They had better servants, and some brought their own. And as you drop down in class, you drop down in room size. So,
Right.
for example, I read a story somewhere on the type that if you were in class 1, you ate first. You
Right.
know, you ate first, and then class 2 ate, and class 3 was the third eat. So it was interesting how even though most people on that boat were very wealthy within themselves, I
Right.
mean, in those days to cruise took a lot of money, and because they were gone for long periods of time. And
Right.
this is why they brought their personal belongings with them in chests and in some places safes they brought with
Right.
them because they had their valuables
That is true.
because they weren't going to return for maybe a month. That's
Right.
how they cruised. So it's interesting to see that there was an African American born in 1912,
Right.
but as a passenger.
and brilliant. It was
Right,
brilliant.
Brilliant
right.
man.
After Debbie said, she just described him as very dark, and I said, Caucasian or Mediterranean. She said, no, I think he's American.
Wow.
And so I started doing some research with the president of the Titanic Historical Society, and he said, sure, there were. And he said, actually, there were two, and the other one was a man, what do you call him? Well, like a manservant, the person,
Steward?
the rich man's butler,
okay.
like on, you know,
Right,
television
right.
programs you see where he dresses,
Sure,
you know,
sure,
his,
sure.
his,
The gentleman's gentleman.
yeah, gentleman's gentleman,
Yes.
basically. And by the way, so the other one did choose to go down with a very wealthy.
That's right.
I won't mention any
The
names.
loyalty was there.
With a very, with his very wealthy, you know, person that he was taking care of.
You know, as we get into these stories, I think that we want the viewing audience to understand that it took about 3 hours for the Titanic to finally
Right,
go
that's
down.
correct.
But the people left aboard. The lifeboats leave with 1,200 people, roughly. People are jumping in the water at this point because they realize now they're not getting off the ship. But the 1,500 souls that went down, they knew for quite a long time what their fate was.
Right.
Not only do they know this is it for them, it's coming, they can't get off it, because the stern first goes into the water, so the bow's up in the air. The boat now becomes very unstable, you can't be on deck any longer, or you're holding on to railings. They watch their families sail out into the night, their
That's
wives
correct.
and children and mothers and girlfriends or whatever.
That's right.
Not knowing what their fate was going to be. I just can't imagine standing on that ship in that cold night,
This is
watching your family
exactly.
leave, knowing
And-
this disaster is going to happen.
And I never thought about it, but until the spirits came to Debbie, one particular story was, we call them the mature couple. They informed
Oh,
Debbie
yes.
that they were not to be described as old. They were not to be, Debbie
That's right.
wasn't to guess how old they were.
Really?
So we call them the mature couple in the book. They knew the ship was sinking, they chose to stay in their first class suite. And go down with the ship
Together.
together. And thanks to Debbie, they are now content because they told,
Their half. Their
you know, they
piece
they
was-
basically
yeah.
fussed to Debbie that all these people are going down there, the rich people are buying tickets to just
Right.
take a tour of the Titanic, and, you know, everybody's going down there for souvenirs, and she said, we just want to be left alone for
So how
eternity.
interesting is that? Do you know what I'm saying?
Right.
So and because we do the whole paranormal thing, they do see what what we do. They see what we do. And that cannot be easy for them to see that it has been marketed in a way and pushed in a way that so many little things have been forgotten. So even though we had the wealthy, mature couple,
Right.
they still respected it enough to tell us their side of it and went down with it because that was their choice. And they were mature because they were a little slightly on the elderly age. But they went down with all their belongings. That's how they felt. And they truly just wanted to be left alone after they said their stuff. And I believe that that's some of them want to continue hanging out and tell us things and, you know, and then you have the other ones who just say, when is it going to be done? When are we going to stop talking about this?
Right.
Yeah.
I don't think we'll ever stop talking about the Titanic.
Right.
Because it was such a tragedy.
Yeah.
I think our audience has to know that the Titanic was built at a time when Germany was attacking cruise ships and
Yes,
other vessels.
yes.
The Lusitania was attacked by a German submarine.
Yes.
And when they built this, the cruise line guaranteed it was unsinkable, that
Yeah.
it could not be sunk. And that's why a lot of these people took this maiden voyage, because they felt so safe on it. If the Germans, you know,
That's
being in the
right.
North Atlantic
That's
with
right.
submarines, they were sold a bill of goods, if you will, that this boat can't be sunk. That's
But that's the whole thing. There was so much hype about it, which is
Right.
the newspapers that we have today as well. That the reason why we wanted to even talk about the book for tonight is because there was more behind the hype
Right.
than what was told.
Right.
And so the book is more of an emotional aspect on what happened to some who weren't able to share what they wanted to share.
Right.
That's basically what our woman, as we
Right.
named her, said to Debbie. She said, nobody knows. Historians don't know. Relatives don't know. Even some of the survivors don't know what actually happened on this ocean
Right.
liner.
when she went down.
And it's so that's why when we were getting these and actors, even though they were real people who passed away, every time we were getting a new vision and adding a new chapter and adding, we were in shock of it because they were giving us their side of real information that showed that they were real people
Wow.
who had to suffer like my gosh, even the way Luke was, everything between our Polish man, everything is showing a lot of how they had to struggle even to get their tickets because they wanted to try a better life or a different life and what they'd gone through to be able to get in the ship for this to happen.
So they guided you through Debbie, but they guided you, both of you, through this whole book. This wasn't
Oh,
a brainstorm, said, let's write
We
a book.
couldn't have done it without them, right?
Right. So,
Yeah.
so again, I kept promoting this
See
show
that.
tonight based on the fact that for the first time you're hearing from the victims. I mean,
Right.
it's groundbreaking. It
Yes.
truly is groundbreaking
It
in
is.
that who's ever done this before?
We think it's groundbreaking, you know. So it's like, so whenever we talk about it, we try to tell the public that to us this is groundbreaking,
Right.
and why it hasn't been picked up or a lot more haven't noticed it. We don't understand it because, and what we do for work,
Right.
we go by what is being shown to us,
Right.
and so we kept saying we're going to do it, we're going to do it, we're going to do it, and we did, and it came out so well.
So let's get to the stories.
Yeah.
Are there any stories you can't tell us? Let's start off with that.
Interestingly, no one said their names to Debbie, so it was
Okay.
very difficult to research. We
Right.
sort of could go in, there's a mother and a daughter, so who were they
Sure.
on the ship? And they were
Right.
wealthy because Debbie said they were packing jewels, just as you
Oh,
said, they were packing
yes.
jewels to take in
Yes.
their.
Sure, they took them with them.
They did. Well, they wore them every night with
Right.
their, what went with what dress
That's
and
true.
whatever. The only character in the book, the only spirit who came to Debbie was and said his name was Luke. And he's
Mm-hmm.
the first one. He's the one that she saw that night in the bathtub.
That's right.
He visited her again and I'm going to say against Debbie's will because Debbie likes to invite spirits.
That's
and he was
correct.
very brazen. He just showed up. So she had a little mother-daughter,
Powwow.
little
Yeah, we had to have
powwow
a
with
little
him, that's
powwow
right.
with this one.
So tell us,
So-
can you tell us Luke's story?
Yeah. So what's interesting is very handsome. So we keep saying it all the time. He's very handsome, and the reason why I was a little bit perturbed at the beginning is because when I do or have my appointments, I am very much in control for that half an hour to that hour completely. With Luke, I had no control at all. So how
let
he
me
figured this
interrupt
out
you.
was
I
weird.
want
Oh,
our
yeah.
audience to hear something here.
Oh, yeah.
When you talk about when you do readings, you
Yes.
have somebody else with you,
Yes.
correct?
Yeah.
And a lot of times, is it fair to say that they may be a,
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
is this the first time you experienced this kind of contact with no vessel in between you?
Absolutely.
Wow, so
Yes.
this has to be
Yes.
really different for you also.
It is different for me. And Luke, what he played was, I knew there's always a captain of the ship. And
Right.
it's funny how he's a pun with this book. Luke is the captain of our story. So he's the major character of the story. And that's something that we want to make very clear, because he's the one who brought or allowed the other ones to come to us to write about this. So I would love to say I did it all by myself, but I didn't this time.
So is there a
so-
hierarchy then? I mean, you said Luke allowed the others to come.
Oh,
to
yeah.
you.
I think the other
They respect
spirits
him.
trusted him. He was
Really?
obviously,
Absolutely.
you know, he was a take control type person.
Yep.
In researching, that's the only name we had to go by.
Yep.
And so I went back down to the museum in Springfield, Mass, and found somebody named Luciano. That's his first name.
It
And
was,
I'm-
but that was his full name, and we said Luke makes sense.
Luke,
because it's
right.
short for that.
Luke would be a
Correct.
good
Goosebumps.
nickname.
Like, oh my
Luke would be a good
goodness.
nickname.
So you validate that
Yeah.
there was a person on
She
that
did
boat.
validate it.
Well, he also fit the profile that was described
So is
in
he
the
an
passenger
officer
list.
in-
No, he was a
No,
waiter.
He was a waiter.
And Debbie saw him, and
Yeah.
I said nothing when I went to research about, stressed.
I didn't even know you went that day.
Yeah, and he went, and he was a waiter. He studied in Italy. Debbie said he looked Italian.
Which matches
Yes.
the last name.
Yes.
Right.
He had a very arrogant or superior posture, although he was third class.
That's right.
But he was a first class
Servant.
servant.
Yeah.
Because all the servants were divided up. They had
right.
third class servants to wait on third class passengers, second class, and right up to first. So
Right.
he, probably, I won't say conceited, but I mean, he considered himself, think of all these.
Arrogant.
Yeah.
A little
Yeah.
arrogant. When you're 23 to 25 years
Sure.
old, we all kind of had that arrogance about us, and that little bit of, your body's different. You feel really good. Your confidence is up. That's what he is.
Well, he becomes
so,
a leader
That's right.
amongst the
That's
spirits,
right.
obviously.
Yes, he was.
They trusted him.
So
They trusted him.
he's embraced his
That's right.
role.
That's right.
right?
And he really did. And that was what was amazing about that is I always knew for sure when we would see a vision that he was right there. So it was like
Always
he was
there.
always overlooking or making sure that it was done appropriately, respectfully, in the way that he wanted it to come across. So that's where he and I would sometimes butt heads because I was so used to kind of working a different way.
Right.
And then all of a sudden it's this way. It's got to be this way. So it took us almost a year to write the book, I think.
Yeah, and they didn't work with us metaphorically.
No.
They were there.
They
Yeah.
were there.
I would look at my computer screen and
Yeah.
I'd say, Debbie, there's
Yeah.
like little Tinkerbells dashing across the screen. And
Right.
she'd laugh and she'd say, those are kids, those are the kids, because
It
we're
is.
working on the children
right,
of the Titanic.
Right.
Really.
Really.
Times too, because I
And-
had fluid issues that I would seriously sound like I was drowning with her on the phone
So you had the sensations.
as I was speaking with her, and she was worried about working on it. So, that's right.
Yeah, and
know.
these were intense and perhaps getting their stories out, but I saw Debbie basically ill after a visit or a
Really.
session from
This
these
really would
spirits.
happen.
Physically
So,
Yes, this really would happen.
So
So-
these spirits, can we call them, what do we call them, spirits?
Yeah.
I like to call them spirits. It
that
sounds better
respect-
than ghosts, I think,
So,
respectfully.
Yeah.
so these spirits come to you
Yes.
and they really want a book written. That's what they want.
Yes. Yep.
Because they want their stories told.
Yes.
So do you think now if these spirits were to read this book, and I think that it's not a quantum leap to believe they must know what's in there. Would you-
Absolutely.
I mean,
because I feel
they were around you
my
all the
hair
time.
is standing on end as we're
Right.
talking about it because they were over our shoulders. The Afro-American, which I loved so much, was sitting on the side of me, knocked things over in my office. I don't remember what that was all about. I don't know. But, these things that we can't even make up, that, yes, it's hard for people to believe it. We get that. But when you experience it, like she began experiencing when we began writing the book, you can't, hey, this is, you know what I'm saying? You
Yeah.
went through these experiences yourself.
I have no doubt that each spirit about whom we wrote in this book was there at some time and sanctioned what we did or did not sanction, because a page would disappear on the computer.
On
A whole
when
page.
she would
Just
send it to
disappear
me,
if you wrote it.
and it
Yeah.
would tell us if that was approved or not.
Yeah.
If they didn't go, and we would say, crap, I almost
Yeah.
swore. Crap, we need to change that.
That was
because
their- yeah.
I said, Bonnie, I don't have it. It's not on my, I don't have it. And she'd go, what? And I'm like, I don't have it. And like a whole chapter would be gone.
They actually edited. They edited, and the
was-
children played
this
pranks.
is-
Well, that's my
and
point. So they
and
don't
again-
only inspire you two to write
Oh,
this
yes.
book. They actually play a big
participated.
part in the book being written.
participated in
They
it.
absolutely did.
That's why I said, and you cannot make this up and give us a lie detector test. This happened. You know what I mean? So it's like, we can't even make this up. I remember when we finished the book, and she's like, okay, here we go. Our last phone call, we finished it. And I was still in my pajamas, sorry. I was still in my pajamas having the conference call. And I picked up the laundry basket and I put it on my bed. And I naturally, folding laundry, I put the TV on. The Titanic movie was on.
Wow.
Now, what's even crazier, what's crazier about that is I tried to change the station because I've seen it 25 times, couldn't change the station. I said, well, I guess watch the movie then. I threw the remote on my bed and I just started folding my laundry.
So
that really happened.
Would you say that
Yeah.
they were angry about what happened?
Not at
Oh, no.
all. They're not angry about it. What they're angry about is the fact that they had all these stories, right? And that about themselves too, even as people. Like
Sure.
they're not just passengers. They were people. They had real lives with kids. Some were gays, some were lesbians, and I hate to put titles on things,
Right.
but in today's society we do,
Right.
that were never mentioned in anything that we have
the
today
books.
online.
Wow.
Yeah. So do you know what I mean?
Well, we tend to
yeah.
take tragedies, and I think it's a safety valve for us, but we take tragedies like 9/11, for example.
Yes.
And we look at versus people.
That's what
You
I
know,
was
we
trying
say
to say.
1,500 souls died on the Titanic,
Yes. Right.
but that's one real soul.
It is.
Times
That-
1,500.
that's what
You know,
we're trying to
We
tell the
often don't
story.
talk about the individuals. We only talk about groups and numbers.
Right.
Because it's so safe for us to do that.
Right. Right.
Because when you get in and personalize it like you guys did in the book,
yeah.
then it becomes a real true story.
And that's what we try
And
to
hard
do.
to accept.
And personalizing what he just said about that. Remember when he showed me when the ship actually went down?
Right.
Holy moly's! Because being a medium, that when they show you vision, sometimes it's so real that you're not even here anymore and you're there. And I said to him, "This isn't fair what you're doing to me." He goes, "Yes, it is, because it happened to them."
Really?
So how interesting that now, like to them, it is fair. This is what happened to us. But he kept me safe the entire time.
Right.
Do you know
Sure.
what I'm saying?
Sure.
But it's frightening to have seen it. It was
Because
frightening.
they were actually managing how the story was going to be told.
That is correct.
And the details of the story.
That is correct.
You said, right, that pages that you wrote would get deleted.
Oh,
Just
absolutely.
arbitrarily deleted. Because they didn't want it said either that way or that at all. They really wanted something else in place.
It is so true.
We had to revise and
revise.
revise because it was like, really?
How many
You know?
times? And now, can you? We're
Oh,
so
yes.
even now, go ahead. You explain.
We are writing a script, a television script based on intentional spirits, and the same thing's happening.
Same
because
thing is happening.
I'm sending copy to Debbie, and Debbie will say, "I don't have
I
that."
don't have it.
And then it will just go from
It's
my
disappeared,
computer.
gone.
It just goes. It just disappears.
So you send it to Debbie. Debbie gets it.
She never got it.
So we got people sitting out there tonight saying, well, that's technology.
That's
Go
right.
back to where it was sent from. You don't have it either.
Well,
It's gone.
but I printed it out.
Right.
I have it in print,
In
but it's gone on
front
the
of
But it's
computer.
gone
her,
on the
and
system.
she takes notes and she circles everything,
Yeah.
and it's not on the screen.
It's
So
not a
they had
glitch.
the ability to go into there and say, I don't like that.
That's right.
Delete
That's
that.
right.
Or maybe they had the ability to go in and say, you know what, that's not exactly what happened. It's not going to be
That's
printed that
it's
way.
so, and I believe this absolutely true.
Right.
We had went through this when I don't want to bring up an historian's name, that was given the material and knocked the book down and said, "There's no way. Nothing that you guys said pops up." How do they know that? Because they weren't the ones who experienced the vision, and we never said we were 100% correct. What we are saying
Right.
is that we are 100% correct in what we went through writing this book.
Correct.
That is what we're saying. But historians will knock it down and say that person didn't exist, that wasn't true, or this, that. But how did they know that? You were not there at 1912, and you did not go down with them. You know what I'm saying?
Well, and you know what,
it's-
not to get off the book,
Right.
but you bring up an interesting point. You
Yes.
and I are going to do a whole show on this
Right.
because To me, and I always say this when I do public speaking, you know, it's amazing to me that the people that don't believe in mediums, don't believe in the
Right.
paranormal, don't believe in UFOs, don't believe in Bigfoot, isn't it as easy to prove it in as it is to prove it?
We would think so.
If we put 1/10 of our energy into proving it in, scientifically, however you want,
Right.
but it's so simple to sit back and say, I don't buy that. I don't believe that.
It is.
You know what? I challenge people. I challenge people in our audience tonight to read this book and go do your research.
Yep.
Because too many people sit back and say, I don't believe in ghosts.
Right.
I don't believe in mediums. I don't believe in UFOs. That could not carry on a conversation with you
Right.
about the subject matter. You know, when I speak, I say to people, if you don't believe this, stand up. I would love to have you tell me that you have definitive evidence,
Right.
that says ghosts don't exist.
Right.
UFOs don't exist.
Right.
Mediums can't read people. I want definitive evidence. And they
Right.
say, well, we can't give that to you. Then why do you think I should give it to you?
Yes.
I'm confused on that.
Yeah.
If I'm
That's
willing
what
to
we do
accept
with
you,
this.
to say, hey, maybe they don't exist, why aren't you willing to accept my theory that maybe they do?
They do. And that's what, remember when we went through that?
Oh, right.
I go
And
through this all the time.
I never
her-
had any doubts. I mean, I've always
her reputation's
believed.
impeccable. This is a business career, goal-oriented, high educated, and took a chance on writing something that possibly could be crapped on.
Well, I
And
had,
you did
yeah,
it. You
and
know
I
what
had
I'm saying?
I had confirmation because
Oh, yeah.
the spirits came to you direct, but they were also at my house.
It really did happen.
So that's,
yes.
that's another angle to this, because I heard
Yeah.
you say this earlier. Do you think, Bonnie, because of this book, because of this project, that you have now become a sensitive or become no reachable by the?
Well,
these
Debbie has always said that for the last, for decades.
Yes, I get so giddy about it.
Psychics and mediums have told me that I have psychics. My grandmother, medium, and for years, and sometimes something will come through, and it's like, oh, that really happened. But I don't want to be Debbie when I grow up.
Right.
So
right.
it's, and so I just continue to fight it, but I'm very intuitive. I really am intuitive. And I witness temperature changes in the room
Yes.
when, with Debbie, when Luke comes into the office, because he's overseeing everything. But the same day that those little Tinkerbells crossed my computer and Debbie told me that they were
We had
the
6 of
chil-
them. 6 because there were 6 in my room, and what they do is they popped into her office at the same time we were working.
Whoa.
Because I'd always do the conference call in my bedroom, because that's where the vortex in my opening is for everybody. And they were in her office.
So will these spirits stick around with you now, Deb? I mean,
Well, they're back.
did they? Well, I mean, the book
Yes,
is
they
written.
are.
I assume that they would
Right.
approve of the book.
Right, they're back.
Okay.
Because we said, let's write this TV script on it, and she's worked on it more for on the past 2 weeks than I have because my time has been limited. However,
So they're at my house more
they're now at her house more. Do you
Really?
see what I'm saying? So it really is true. This really does happen, and
Because now they want the story told in a
Yes.
play form.
Right.
Some sort of a play or an
Right.
act or
And I
something.
just happen to
Yeah.
have more time over the
Screen
last
Right.
couple of
And
weeks.
they want to
Yes,
oversee
yes.
that.
They're not malicious. When I
No.
say
Right.
that they've deleted copy, I feel no danger.
helpful.
I feel
Right.
no malice. If anything, I had pranks in the house from
Did
the
you see her
children.
face?
Really.
Yes, I have a little powder room off my office, and the towels are quite secure on the towel rack. The antique towels, actually, from about the early 1900s. And I would go in and have this week go in, and they're in the sink. There's no way they could go in the
Oh.
sink. They're evenly
And they
balanced.
never move from that bar. How many times I use
Oh,
this
I've had
bathroom?
them there for 10
Never
years.
move from that bar. They're not meant to be used.
Well, I do wash them once a year.
I know. To be used.
How
right,
many children? Do you know how many children survived?
I don't know that, but that's a question we can ask. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? So
yeah.
I don't know that, but what I find very interesting coming from lower middle class myself, and as well, I know that your upbringing wasn't as easy as well. I understand where they were coming from and how left out that they feel.
Sure.
And we've had a few of the rich come through, but a lot of it was the lower and the middle class
Right.
that came through. So I don't know, but I was proud to do it. I was proud to do the book.
Well, I'm proud, I'm pleased, I'm happy, I'm content, because these spirits were helped.
That's right.
Their spirit, their literal spirit, you know, each
Sure.
was
right.
saved or recognized, you
Right.
know, at least, and whether the true historians want to recognize them or not. And there's a big rumor going around that there were a lot of people aboard the Titanic, and nobody knew they were there.
Really?
Yes. Rich. Well, think about it. I mean, some of the rich would want to say, I'm going on the Titanic. The mature couple. They've been all over the world, this couple.
Yes.
But because it was the Titanic and he wanted to discuss it at parties
Right.
afterwards,
Sure.
he forced the issue with part of his guilt, I think,
This is
didn't let
true.
him pass over completely because he felt badly. They went on the trip, and that was the end.
So that's an interesting point.
Yes.
Is that why they stick around? Because they feel guilty?
So I think everyone has different feelings about it. Particular instant, because I don't think she wanted to go. I think she was tired. She wanted to stay home, and all these trips, gone for 6 months at a time.
Right.
And she was trying to make her spouse happy. She made him happy, all right, because they went, and this was the fate. Do you see what I'm saying?
Is this the same couple that
Yes.
went down together?
The mature couple.
The
So
mature
So they make that
couple.
decision to go
Yes.
together.
Yes.
But when you get into other spirits, did you hear the same story that?
No, they were all different. All
different.
very emotional. All of them were very connected to this, to what we were writing.
Someone asked if I were glad that we wrote the book. And I said, if only for one spirit, and that was the young girl. For over 100 years, she had been looking and seeking
Her mom.
mother. Her mother gave her a glass of milk every night before she went to bed,
Right.
and she missed it. When Debbie, well, actually, she didn't come to Debbie. Luke
Right.
brought her.
Luke
and
brought
it was,
her.
and he was kind of
Holding
the,
her
the
hand, little
go-between.
6-year-old, little tiny.
A little
thing.
girl.
Yeah.
And all the time Debbie was hearing Debbie's back hurt and she didn't understand
I
it.
forgot about that.
And the little girl said, when the ship sank, and she was up late at night, it was 11:30 when it was hit or something like that. She was playing hide and seek
Right.
with her siblings.
Yeah.
And she was hiding in a bathroom. And when the ship sank or broke, the kids probably were oblivious to the fact anything was going on if they were in a
Right.
part of the ship that wasn't cognizant of the fact that it had been struck. But she said the ship moved or jerked and she was against a wall.
Yep.
That's why, and she said, my back hurts.
So
Yep.
she comes through, but her mother doesn't.
Her mom came through in the end.
Really?
And came and got her. It was unbelievable.
Wow.
The emotions that I can't even talk about without crying. I had to try to collect myself. That was so, being a mother myself, and having that reuniting after, my gosh, decade, century of time
Wow.
was amazing, because they finally got together. And when Luke looked at me that day, it's like, we did it. I can't even talk about it. I need to bring tissues or something
But
next
just
time.
to think that
It
a
was
child
awesome.
would
Right.
be on the other side.
Which does happen without
Not-
a loved one.
Not with her mother.
Right.
And what's interesting too is that Luke, here he is a head
Yeah.
servant, and that was a big job in those days. I mean, if
Yes.
you were the head of the,
Yes.
the wait staff, you had a very big job. And yet, in the afterlife, he's still performing services,
Still,
right?
still
Because
doing it.
he brings
Oh.
this mother and daughter
Yeah.
together
Yeah. Right,
Yeah.
right.
who haven't been together for a long time,
That's
for 100
right.
years or so.
So
correct?
I think
Yeah.
like when people
that's
read the
amazing.
book, they will notice, because there's many different characters. It's not just one. We've only mentioned a couple so far. Each one was developed into something where we helped them. And in reality, what we do for work, what I do as a medium, is I connect people. So I knew it after, because I've read it 3 times myself. When you notice, what we did really was that we connected them to where they needed to be. And I guess that's what we're supposed to do.
Except maybe for that Afro-American, and we call him the man in the shiny shoes.
Yes.
And evidently, there was a lot of prejudice back then. Now, this man was an engineer. He
Brilliant, high educated.
Right.
Yeah.
He sailed from France to go to Haiti. He was going to be doing a big engineering project
Right.
or whatever.
He's
and
a speaker. Oh yeah, he was.
And it was a
well-known.
he was
mixed
affluent,
it was
Yeah.
rich too. And I thought, well, that's interesting.
that's
very,
interesting, too.
very much.
yeah.
especially in
Yeah.
1912.
Exactly.
very
and
much.
he was the only character that I thought didn't find resolution. I think because...
He didn't find
I
resolution?
don't
No,
think
I
he
don't
did.
think
He
he
was the
did.
only one that
Yeah.
still was unsettled when he was done talking. You know, it was like when he was done with us, it
Yeah.
was like, that's it. And so I really think that he's still on the other side feeling guilty, very strict with his wife and children.
With his
as
wife and
were
kids. Ooh, they
all
weren't even
men.
allowed to leave their rooms. Like, I really felt that. You know, that they were very,
So
so
why do you
restricted.
think this character came to you?
The first time he came was in the car, right? In the vehicle.
He just popped
He
in. I
just
don't even
popped
think Luke
in.
brought him.
Yeah, he just popped in, so that shows you a little bit, because he was still a higher class, and not really listening to the rules that I was trying to put down, so he kind of popped in out of the blue. He was aggravated, and he was the one who kind of told us a lot about what was going on in the ship that they didn't want us to know about, and he was saying
Because
it.
he had the inside track to
He
that.
had the inside track.
So his motivation was to tell his story
Right. And-
from inside how
Yes.
the ship's operated, the safety issues and stuff like that?
Yep, and let us know.
So can you
this
tell us
is-
some of the things he told you?
That he was one who told us it was salacious.
the one
and
that
they
said-
had parties and
Yeah.
basically, I don't know what to say on public TV. You know, things that that people venture outside their marriages at below the ship, and was saying that these were things that would happen nightly, and you never spoke about it. You just
Right.
drank your whiskey, smoked your cigars, call it a day. You know,
Sure.
and that's what you were doing. And that is what upset him a lot, because he was judged based on his race. And
Now, does he have children with him?
Yes,
Yes,
he
he
did.
had the 2 daughters.
Yes,
So he's
he
upset
did.
about that too.
Yes.
then,
Yeah.
'cause
Yeah.
He has
Yeah.
a strong family unit, apparently,
Right,
correct?
right.
Yeah.
Very disciplined, and because a lot of them, from how I understood it in the vision, is they were even homeschooled, like on the ship, because he was very educated.
Right.
So even if they were on the ship, he still wanted his children to be taught.
Right.
So they were still taught and still getting what they needed as kids, when a lot of the other kids were just wanting being kids. And here were his kids still getting educated, nursed, whatever they needed with his wife. And his wife was even very much, you know, prim and proper and everything between, from her posture, everything.
Now,
So,
did they all go down with the ship? Him,
So
his
He
wife,
put
and children?
he put his
Yes.
wife and daughters on one of the lifeboats.
yes.
And then he, unlike some men, honored the fact, and he put a life vest on.
He never made it. Yeah.
And he told his wife and children, I will see you
He
again
did.
soon.
He did say, I'll see you again
But he
soon.
knew that
knew
he
he
wouldn't.
wasn't
Yeah,
We'll just get
because he
goosebumps,
knew
too.
that if he told her, I've had through the
I know.
whole episode so
I
far.
know, maybe they're
He-
probably here.
Yeah, he had that to comfort her, because he knew that she wouldn't go on it, that she would say, no, we're staying with you. And
Right.
he said, nope, you know, you guys go, I will meet you. He had given her, you know, whatever, if they had traveler's checks or money, he had given her what he had.
Right.
And she was able to go off with that. So I'm like, goosebumps.
Well,
then
and
just,
see,
you
there,
know,
therein lies the other problem with the whole tragedy.
Right.
That they had to make decisions on who was going to live and who was going to die.
split decision.
And they knew that.
Yes.
I mean, when the Titanic first hits, there's an announcement that, you know, they hit something, but not to worry about it. It wasn't really a big deal, that, you know, it would stay afloat, it's not going down, and so forth and so on.
Right.
But quickly, within a 3-hour period, I mean, they know this boat is sinking. This
Right.
boat's not going to be saved, and nobody's coming for them. I mean, it was hours before rescue ships could show up or anything else.
Right.
So these kind of stories have that other aspect of them, that not only did these people become victims, but they suffered
Yes.
in such pain and agony
Right.
over their loved ones. That's what we said at the beginning of the show.
Right.
They stood at a rail
Right.
and watched their children and their wives and
Yes.
their mothers and sisters, whatever, you know, go off in lifeboats, not knowing what their fate was going to be.
Right.
Remember, there was no, I mean, they were out in the middle of the North Atlantic in what we would define today as rowboats. I mean,
right.
these didn't have motors on them. They didn't have shelter like they have today. They were out there, 30 people in a boat or whatever, all by themselves. And husbands, and I'm sure some women went down.
Right. And we got to remember there's no technology. You
I know.
It's
Because-
like, we
I
got to
know.
remember that part of it.
That's correct.
So can you imagine still even being on the rowboats or lifeboats?
Right.
And not having, or not even knowing if who's going to come.
Correct.
When is it going to happen? You know what I mean? So
Or if.
And there
Or
were
if,
stories
you
of
know?
women that there were only 2 seats left. They put their children
Yes.
on the lifeboats and
Right.
stayed behind.
That's
Not as
right.
much to be with their husband, in the
Right.
final hours, but because they wanted the children
That's right.
to have that seat so that they
That's
would
right.
escape. But
That's
they
right.
still didn't know what the fate of those children were going to be.
Right.
So,
See, isn't
I
it
mean, the stories are
unbelievable?
never
It
ending.
is.
I think a critical emotion in the book, and it's true. You felt the emotion when he said, I put my family on the boat.
Right.
But then he was probably the only one who explicitly described drowning.
Really.
Yes.
Yes.
In
did.
detail, he talks
Yes.
about the
Luke
drowning.
Luke brushed upon it a little bit about the
Luke
cold.
was very physical. He showed us very physical.
Yeah, yeah.
How the body looks like, and oh boy, did he bring
So
that
he
cold
showed you
in.
pictures of this.
Oh yeah, no, because he would come in drenched, and be blue, so swollen. So yeah, he's right. And as
He
we went
did clean
on,
up later.
He did
He dried
as we
out.
went on, and we were just talking about this.
Yeah.
That how do we explain that as we go on in the visions, he gets better, heals, he looks young, he's starting to get his youth back again, and that is because we helped him. And he's able to let go of what happened to him. Therefore, he was able to let go of what had happened to his
Wow.
physical body, and then he was healing. So we did our job. We helped him.
But the man in shiny shoes, stories have been written,
Yeah.
movies have been filmed, but this is from the mouth of one who drowned. And he
Right.
described the water going into his lungs.
That's right.
And you can see it on television, you can see it
The
in
terror,
a movie,
yeah.
but we felt it.
It was unbelievable.
There were times when Debbie would send me notes, and the front of I would be drenched because I didn't even realize that I was crying.
Wow.
That's why we say it's a very emotional book. It's not just based around facts, because we want everyone to know the facts. Of course, we have newspapers with facts on them. The dates. I don't want to say newspapers with facts on them. Sometimes they're not always factual. So, sorry, I had to correct myself on that. But the book itself is a very emotional read because we explain in an emotional way what they went through, or some of them who weren't able to explain what had happened to them.
Right.
And we let them do it freely. If they wanted to talk about buying bread, we wrote about it. If they wanted to talk about putting the girdles on and,
Which
pregnancies,
they did,
and which
their
they
corsets,
did.
yeah.
Yeah, we wrote about it. So we wrote whatever they showed us. We weren't forcing anyone
Right.
to tell us a certain thing, or didn't twist their arm or say, no, we don't want to talk about that, which this kind of, sometimes we see on the paranormal on shows where they make the spirit say something, or they want to hear certain something. We never did that. We just went with it. With whatever came is what we wrote, and that's how we wrote the book.
I think that everybody has to understand, and this is not a knock on the paranormal
Right,
shows.
right.
I know Jason and Grant from Ghost Hunters very well.
Right.
I would like to think they're friends of mine. They have to entertain every week.
Right.
That's what television is about. Whether it's a movie about the Titanic or whether it's the Boston Red Sox playing, that's entertainment.
Right.
And people have to understand that they write that kind of stuff for their actors.
Right.
It doesn't have to be true. We just watched the O.J. Simpson trial.
Oh,
and,
yes.
and then they had Marsha Clark on live.
Yes.
And there were a lot of things in there that they put in weren't true.
That's right.
And my wife said, well, how can they do that? And I said, because it's entertainment.
Because it's entertainment, yes.
But I mean-
Poetic license.
Yes,
Yeah, exactly.
there
So
it
people
is.
have to understand when you watch something on television, that's entertainment. That doesn't mean it's the way it really happened.
Right,
I mean, there
right.
were people that jumped overboard into the North Atlantic that had freezing cold water. I
That's
mean,
right.
they couldn't have survived more than 5 or 6 minutes, even with jackets on.
Right.
And they died there just floating.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, many of them did that because the alternative was the ship was going down.
Right.
I have kind of an off-the-wall question.
Go ahead.
And I think I've been thinking about things. Such a tragedy, and I can see both of you, it brings tears to your eyes.
Oh, I
both
almost
of you have
cried
filled up here a
5
couple of
times.
times. And it certainly is moving for me also, because I think tragedies like this story never gets told
Mm-hmm.
accurately. Were there any funny stories came out of this?
I don't know if I would say funny. There was
Anything
probably
that you
flirtatious.
chuckled at when you heard?
Nothing really, not from the spirits per se.
Yeah.
When they came and visited, they were playing ball in Debbie's
Right.
front yard when she
Right.
drove home one night
Which
on a rainy
my
night.
children had seen.
And the
my
kids
children
saw
Saw
it.
them.
saw it. Yeah.
They would unwrap, can I say toilet tissue?
Yeah, sure.
Yes,
You can say that on
yes.
TV.
They unwrapped the toilet paper in
So fun things like
in that same powder room, okay?
Right. Right.
But they were the children. They
Right.
didn't, they must have passed as children. I don't know how that works, but
Yeah. Yeah.
Did they pass as children?
Yeah.
Deb?
Yeah. So that's really what it
So
was.
do
and-
these children that pass, did they know that they passed? I mean,
Yes.
when they come through to you, they know
Yes,
that.
and
they-
the reason why it
they're in a
was one
different
day
place.
I came home from bringing home from getting the kids from gymnastics. It's like 8:30, 8:45 at night, and it's just when the sun goes down, beautiful, you know. And then we saw them just run across the front yard. And you said, well, first you see the ball. As a driver, your natural reaction is you're going to stop because there's a ball in front of the car.
it's going
And
across.
next thing you know, you hear again, my hair's growing. All the kids just ran, and all of us went like, what was that? You know what I mean? Like, it was unbelievable. And I said, oh, you know what? The kids from the Titanic, because their dresses, everything
Yes.
was of that era.
Yes.
That
And my kids
1912.
saw it.
And Debbie thought it was funny that my
Yeah.
powder room was being destroyed.
Yes,
And I'm going,
yes.
Debbie, things are happening up here.
Yeah.
Well, it's
And-
interesting that here they went through this tragedy, and they're part of writing this book, obviously. I mean,
Right.
If nothing comes out of the show tonight, the message is that they were very instrumental in putting this book together.
That's right.
And what was going to be written.
Which is why it says voices from the Titanic.
Right.
Voices from the Titanic.
So to me, what they're playing, what they're doing with the toilet paper, and what they're doing with the ball in your front lawn, is they're still having fun in an
Yes.
afterlife.
Yeah.
Because they don't sense the tragedy, because children
Right.
don't.
Right.
Right? Children don't sense tragedy.
Right.
Because we protect them.
I think they make the
We-
most of this situation. That's
put
And
them in
except
the
the
show.
little girl who just wanted a glass of milk from her mom every
Yes,
night.
and she got it.
And she-
How to? This is what's kind of interesting to me.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know how to reach that resolution by themselves. They
Mm.
need the help of Debbie.
Yeah, sometimes they do need the help
Yeah.
from us, you know? So, and it's not just me, it can be someone who's intuitive or a paranormal investigator. It's someone who's willing to do it and has good intentions behind it. Sometimes they just need a little bit of help, you know, a
Right.
nudge.
Right.
And the ones who came through to us, I believe, needed that nudge and needed something because they wouldn't have come through if they didn't need it.
And Luca's a great
know?
example of that. I
That's
mean,
right.
He comes
That's
to
right.
you in a vision of, really sad shape and
That's right.
somebody that's drowned and everything else, but
I
he
never looked at it that way.
he
I
gets
know,
better
I
as,
did, yeah.
as the story goes along.
Right, he does.
and
he gets
that-
better
that's
as the
how
story
you're
goes
kinda
on.
healing him.
And stronger. He
Right.
became very much a force, to be reckoned with, where he can make things happen.
Mm.
And that I'll never forget. Like that's almost like a magical thing that I'll never forget that.
All of our spirits, with the exception of one, the man in the shiny shoes, have a happy ending to their
Right.
stories.
That's correct.
And I think that that's important
So you
to say.
can you share one of those happy endings with us?
Well, the little girl who reunited
hooks
with,
up with her
with
mother,
mother.
right.
And then there was a family.
Right.
There was a family
Tell
that
us that
came to
story.
Debbie.
Yeah.
They kept popping. Now, poor Debbie, she would be she would be grocery shopping, and all of a sudden there's a family of four standing in front of her, dressed
Right.
like the early 1900s. And
That's true.
but this one family with their children, he kept showing you like a scenario, like you said it was like almost like a game show when they
That is right. That's
Yeah.
true. Yeah, like
So-
almost showing us game show kinds of things of that. Basically, he didn't want to say in too many words that they needed help. He didn't want to say it, so his ego and his pride kind of got in the way. But when you realize it, that they were in need, you know how it was when the whole face is stoic and no one's moving and smiling, no one is showing emotion, no one is. It was all like. Then you knew. It's like, okay, there's something going there. And that's how they were always coming across. And especially, though, when you have their hands on the shoulders, which is how I saw them all the time, they just needed a little bit of help and just someone to say, I get it, I understand, I know.
So-
well, let me show you this,
So tell our audience, these four people, let's use this family.
Yeah,
They're in despair. I mean, they've gone through a tragedy.
Yes.
They come to you, and you say they just needed help. To get to where? To get to what point, Deb?
well, we always talk about, in the paranormal field, about dimensions and different places, okay?
Right.
Now, we can choose to either go in that happy place and have a really, easier time if we want to after we pass. But you can also stay in the place that has made you suffer most of your life. You can go in that place where you've suffered cancer. You can go in that place where you drowned and stay there because you think that's a part of you. Well, what we try to do is show them that that's not what's always part of them.
Okay.
And that there is more that's magical and they can have so much more than them continuing to search and suffer and being able to stop relating to who they were physically, because now spiritually, it's like a magical place where they can
Wow.
go and just, have a whole different life. So that's what I think we showed in the book is them, okay, now you guys can have a different life, which is what, who figured it out? The mature couple. They figured that
Yes.
out. So they're like,
Yes.
okay. But I think it's based on spirituality too. I think it's based on how you were raised and what you were told and what you were meant to believe in that really helps the crossing over process easier. So naturally you do see some who naturally crossed over and were able to, have a decent other side, and other ones really struggled.
So with the exception of the man with the shiny shoes.
Yes.
Okay, which is an interesting story unto itself. We could do a whole show on that one.
Yes.
Do you think everybody else that you wrote about got to this place you're talking about? Are you confident that?
I'm confident that they have.
got
Yes.
there? Good.
I think
I
Luke
think so.
still wants to work.
Yeah. He'll be
think he's
back
got
with more
more.
spirits, probably. There'll be a sequel.
Yes, yeah.
And Voltaire said, to the living we owe respect, but to the dead we owe the truth.
That's
Wow,
right.
That's.
Now, this book,
That's true.
as many may read it as fiction, it's not. This information comes from the mouths
Of
and
those
the
who-
thoughts
that's right.
of those who perished on the Titanic.
And we're so
Real
excited.
quick on the
just to
last
be
few
able to do
minutes
this.
here.
Yeah.
One thing that concerns me, that both of you said, and I've been watching you
Yeah.
through the show, both of you have filled up many times.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
I think both of you at one point had to really control your emotions.
I was looking for a box of tissues.
What is this?
I
what is
have
this-
one.
What does this do to you emotionally?
You know what? It's very. I know it's hard for me. I'll answer.
We had to stop
it's-
writing because as a medium was getting physically ill because it was taking so
true.
much out of her.
Right.
And
Right, this is
I
true.
felt the emotion like watching one sad movie over and over. I mean, I sob at sad movies.
Takes its
and
toll.
It does. It really does. So
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, well, listen, this
We'll
has
wrap it
just
up.
been, I think one of the best shows we've had on television. Great books.
So
People have to
excited.
get this and read this book.
thank you.
I can't thank Bonnie enough for coming on with us. Of course, my
was
co-host is
awesome.
here.
Yay.
Such interesting stuff. And I, again, would challenge people to go out and do their research.
Hmm.
I think you two have performed a service here that you're probably not getting full credit for.
Thank you.
You know,
I say it all the time.
being authors is one thing, but performing a service for people that
Yes.
nobody else performs for. Think about that.
But Bob, I think we do have credit from the from the
There you go.
spirits.
I get it.
That-
Those
and
are
we
the
say it
people
all
who
the time.
those are
Yeah.
the people who count.
Yeah. We say
Well,
it
thank
all
you
the
for
time.
coming. Next week on
Thank you.
Paranormal and Beyond, we have, ready for this, Deb? We got
Yes.
Bigfoot guys coming in.
I
Huh?
know.
It's gonna be exciting.
My
It was
son
on
can't wait.
WMUR the other night, Bigfoot.
Oh, get
Yeah, so
out.
this is gonna be an exciting show. Thank you for watching and enjoy your evening.
Good night.